How's it gaming gamers? In the past 4 years, I've coached 2,000 Valorant players, and today I'm going to give away everything I taught them for free in this episode of Tuesday Talks. If you're new here, this is a series where I talk about a topic while you do something else, or if you really want to, you can watch some mid gameplay. This video is going to consist of 3 things: general tips, tips for each role, and agents that are easiest to climb with for each role. By the end of this video, no matter what role or agent you play, I guarantee you'll learn something new. The first and biggest one I see not being talked about is treating teammates like a problem, not a solution. I can already feel people type in the comments, "But Slayer, what about this? Slayer, what about that?" In the realm of solo queue, you will always have imperfect teammates no matter your rank. From Iron to the peaks of Immortal, even in Radiant, you will have teammates that act in ways you don't like or do certain plays you don't agree with. But let me give a personal example. Today I was coaching a student who's in the Ascendant Elo, and they saw their Reyna pushing forward as they do, and kept telling them to come back. Reyna, fall back, let's not peek, let's play numbers. And what do you think the Reyna did? She peeked and died died alone. But what we don't realize is happening is a lot of times we're not working with our teammates, we end up contradicting their play, and that just leads to bad team play, and that leads to you losing the round. And then for that example round, like, they end up losing that, and then it's, oh my god, why did my Reyna peek there? What is she doing? Where the issue that's missing is we're making the Reyna the problem and not the solution. So the rule I like to give students, especially for solo queue, is to play with the most aggressive teammate, no matter your role. No matter your situation, always try to go for the trade. Before we continue, I need to clarify that these are my arms and not boobs. Also, if you're interested in improving, I'm now looking for dedicated players to join my 6-week coaching program. This is where you'll finally understand what's holding you back and get real results like this. You can also find over 50 resources in my private improvement community. Visit Slayerkey.com if this sounds like something for you. Otherwise, enjoy the video. And I think there's a second part to that, which is usually what happens with this kind of player, is the over-theorize the game, the over-create these theories of what Valorant is meant to be, what perfect Valorant looks like. It's the perfect trade, the perfect crossfire. It's the perfect execute that leaves no weakness. I remember I had a gold student, they probably know who they are, who would literally they watch a bunch of esports and they would go into their gold lobbies and start dropping VCT comms to gold players, like an A split on bind, fade eye showers, Jet, you're gonna dash short, control, I want you to smoke here and here. And then they would go into this execute, and probably, if we're lucky, one of them would actually be able to follow the plan. Valorant is a game of adaptation more than it is a game of strategy. I'm going to say that again. Valorant is a game of adaptation more than it is a game of strategy. That leads us perfectly into our second theme, which is create plays to counter their plays. Each team is going to have different weaknesses, and as long as you look for them, you're going to get your team big wins. So I'm going to tell you what weaknesses to look for, and I'm going to tell you what rounds to look for them on so you get those big wins, baby. You might be looking like they have no Sentinel, so they have no flank. They're missing a flank trip, we can get some fast flanks going. You might notice they might not go mid, so you can get some fast flanks going as well. You might notice their A player doesn't have a buy this round. You might just hit A. You might realize that their Cypher always plays a certain spot on the map, or rather the site. And so when you hit that site, you know exactly where to look or prioritize. You might notice the Reyna always pushes a lobby for some reason. Even though she's done it 3 times in a row, she's probably going to do it a 4th. And so I guarantee you sit outside that lobby, pretty good chance you're going to catch that Reyna looking like a complete idiot, as they do. You might notice the fast rotate. And instead of going, oh my god, they rotate so fast. Why do they rotate so fast? They must have a UAV. You instead run a fake play to get a free site. You might notice this isn't a fast hit team. This is a slow hit team. They run more defaulty. So you play less aggressive and more for intel. You might notice you keep losing your A, and what the hell? So you decide to fight A with your entire team on your eco round. Or for example, the flank trip, you might realize that this is your second round bonus. You got like Spectres, Bulldogs, Outlaws, whatever, and you decide to go for a flank on this round because they're gonna have rifles, you're gonna be at a disadvantage. Oh, that's a beautiful segue into our next one. God, these segues are unbeatable. When you're at a disadvantage, play aggressive. When you're at an advantage, play passive. I'm gonna say this one more time for the folks in the back. When you're at a disadvantage, play aggressive. When you're at an advantage, play passive. If we go back to the theory, the perfect theory earlier, when you're at a disadvantage, forget the theory and just fight. When you're at an advantage, maybe try doing some of the theory. Maybe try setting up a crossfire. Maybe try to just get trades with your teammates. Maybe try to just get intel and not risk your life. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Speaking of putting things down, we gotta put down our expectations for help. If you want something, don't expect help. Ask for help. This is a very wild concept, but it's very important to grasp, and there is no player that is an exception to this. If you want help, ask for help. If you want an ability you think it's gonna help your push, ask for it. If you're a duelist player and you're not, oh wait, that's a little bit of spoilers. Oh well, I'm gonna give it to you. If you're a duelist player and you're executing sight, you should be asking for a certain initiator ability to help you. You should be making sure that the smokes are down. If they're not down, you should ask for them instead of saying, oh my god, my clove throws smoke so late. Oh my god, where is my silver droning? And once you start doing this, you're gonna realize that the game instantly becomes a lot easier. And this is why. There's one big overlying concept that determines almost every Valorant fight there is. It's what all abilities do. It's what all of our gunfight principles do. How we peek, how we hold the angle, what gun we have. It all comes under one thing. Who is more prepared than the other? Preparation. Whose crosshair is in a better position? Most simply, this is why you hear about crosshair placement all the time when you first start getting out, start ranking up, start playing the game. And then we have our teammates' abilities or our abilities. If there's a jet flying across your screen, a neon flying across your screen, and you're stunned, darted, flashed, drone, tagged, marked, vulnerable, decayed, and you've done nothing to counter it, you are the less prepared enemy. It's why before you even think about peeking that angle, you should be pre-aiming, lining it up, getting ready to swing the angle, making sure you're isolating one and not peeking into multiple. Why the idea of slicing the pie is so important, because the second you're versing two guns instead of one gun's wild concept here, the fight instantly becomes less favorable. When you don't use a piece of ability to counter something, when you don't have like an off angle or a good timing, you have to look for these things because you need to seek out an advantage. Peeking a scent cat every round is not an advantage. It's an ego swing, and it's a less favorable ego swing. The stats prove it. You need a play, and I don't think this is as big of a thing in other games. I think it's mainly because the time to kill is so low in Valorant, and it's also such a precise game. Or maybe those two go hand in hand. Like, think about literally one bullet could end your life. And so when someone's holding a sheriff and you see Radiance like jumping around in circles or jump swinging a corner or like jumping and then their teammate peeks after them, there's a reason they do that. It's not just trolling, because they create an inherent advantage for their teammate, or they throw off their opponent's crosshair so they can have something to equalize the fight, to create different expectations for their opponents so they're less prepared. Why we do like the jiggle wide swing peek. You're trying to mess with your opponent's head, and if you're not messing with your opponent's head and just butt naked going in there expecting to get kills, I don't know why you're butt naked, but you might as well be at that point because you're exposing yourself. And this is kind of part of it. I'm just going to briefly mention this one. I would spend some time letting fights play out. There's this method that was in Valorant like 2 years ago, maybe 3. It was really popular. It was called the Miyagi method, and it was, I'll give you a simplified version I made of it, where you just spend half a deathmatch aiming at people, being in fights with people, except not shooting your gun, and then the second half you do the same thing but now shooting your gun. And the reason I liked this method so much was because it helped practice low reaction time. It helped players like myself who felt the need to rush fights, felt like they had to shoot as fast as possible, and it stopped fights from being so reactive to like, there's a player on my screen, I'm shooting. A realization that tends to come from this is we realize how much time we actually have in a fight. how long a fight actually lasts. Valorant is very much a game of accuracy over speed and precision over strength. Now, one thing I really want to mention for this, and it's less to do with the Valorant tips, but more just generally, you have to check in on yourself and understand your relationship with the game if you want to improve and get better. A lot of players that come to me for coaching hit a wall somewhere. They hit a wall usually mentally, whether it's like their own expectations about the game, like we talked about our teammates, whether it's their own like confidence issues coming out. Some players know what they need to do, but they don't follow up on what they need to do. And so building confidence in that area can help a lot to trust your own instinct, your own thought. Some players don't want to upset their teammates. Some players are pure ego and just want to be the best and want to swing everything and win every fight because they're the best. Why shouldn't they? Some players just want to compete. They enjoy the competitive environment. They enjoy playing with others in that competitive environment. They want to get in, they want to follow the path of like Valorant player to like Premier / scrims to tourneys, and then start climbing up the pro ladder, hopefully. And so there's all these other different, I don't want to say mental problems because it sounds like I'm saying like they're schizophrenic. But there's all sorts of other mental comma apostrophe dash problems that come up, mental barriers, mental issues. There we go. That's a way better word, Slayer. Nice job. A lot of players have mental issues, and if you don't check on them or notice them or become aware of them, you might not realize that they're creating like self-fulfilling prophecy, kind of like we talked about the Reyna, like if we swan with her, we win that fight. Hopefully we have better odds, and if we don't, then it's our Reyna's problem. So if we do that, of course it's going to be our teammates' fault every time. Why wouldn't it be? Because we make it our teammates' fault. So I don't want this mental aspect to go underlooked. Really up to you how much progress you make here. This is honestly where I believe coaching comes in the best, is because I'm gonna speak from my coaching, because honestly I've seen coaches who have different approaches, but like my experience of coaching, I always try to look at the mental side of the game. What type of player does this person want to be, and what's getting in the way of them doing that? What's working for them and what's working against them? And after coaching for so long, you see the patterns start to emerge in players and students. After playing the game, you know the patterns that the games have. And so, my role kind of comes to helping you navigate through those patterns, trying to see what it is that you may be facing, and then what it is you can do about it, so you have more of a playbook of how to approach the game. not just agent playbook, but also mental playbook. How do you want to react when this situation happens? How is this going to help you become the player you want to be? So there's some restructuring there. Anyways, that's it for general tips. We're going to do tips for each role as I go through this. I also want to say I cover each of these more in depth on Ko-Fi. I go through every single agent and give you different ideas and tips for that agent. Just go to Slayerkey.com and click the guides button. You'll get that with all my other resources. Take a peep if you're interested. Otherwise, let's look at controller. Let's talk about controller. Why not? So my biggest tips for controllers, I think, is playing inside your smokes. I think so many people miss the possibility of throwing closer smokes, using smokes besides the default ones, knowing there's some smokes you don't have to throw, like a Sent Heaven or bind CT on A, or Haven CT on A. There's some smokes you can think about saving on attack that you can later use to like re-smoke Heaven, or use for close to play inside of and create new angles. You're seeing this being picked up a lot more in higher elo now, where they're doing retake smokes almost by default now instead, because they realize how powerful they are. Or they're doing like survival smokes, which is basically the same thing, but sometimes they look a little bit different, on site to like help their teammate live longer and have something to play around. So when Whaley double dashes on site with a stun, with a neon wall, and a Reyna flash, and a Jet updraft dash, and then a Sova dart backside, because this one guy thought it would be a good idea to fill with 4 duelists, they at least have somewhere to hide. And that means that the rotates can come in sooner. So it's really important to read the situation when you throw your smoke. There's a lot of mistakes that come around this, like smoking when teammates aren't even playing an area. No one's gonna hold the smoke, and your goal is to just delay with the smoke. Your goal is just to like basically hope it puts up a smoke screen and then they get terrified and don't come out, I would suggest seriously reconsidering your smoke. There's so much more value that can be gotten from these retake smokes, where it does the same exact objective, but it also allows you to come out on site more easy. And then you guys could do a flood, which is when, like, as the attackers are planting the bomb, the entire defense team is already right around the corner, and so they don't have time to get set up. As they plant the bomb, the defense is on their ass, basically. This is called, I think it's called a flood because on Haven, everyone would just jump out heaven. That's what I'm imagining. I'm imagining like 5 guys flooding out of heaven at the same time and just looking like a waterfall. Oh, you know what? I just realized a flood. Like if you think about a flood on the streets, it's just like water pouring and just like surrounding instantly. Anyways, reading into the smokes is a huge thing. On attack, especially smoke timings. We talked about Duelist a little bit earlier, how important it is to have the right smoke timing. This is also up to your smokers. So if you're playing controller, you should be looking to put up that wall to basically be there at the exact timing of, or probably before, your teammates take the angle your smoke is supposed to block. So if your smoke blocks heaven, it should be there before your teammates peek the heaven angle. You should also be looking for finding your teammates plays that they want to have at the start of the round. You should be looking per round of like what type of plays my teammates want to make. You should ask them, hey, do you want to smoke here? Do you want to do an A main play? Do you want to do a mid play? And then you can complement that with a smoke. I'm thinking like mid haven, very common to do a smoke window. I would also not be afraid as controller to do just like a window smoke and push this on your own, especially if you notice the adaptation we talked about earlier, or just this team doesn't go mid. You could smoke window. Maybe you just don't smoke window, honestly. But maybe there's like a person who lurks mid. You could counter that with the mid smoke. Maybe you just don't smoke window and you just go for a fast flank. Maybe you do and you go for a fast flank anyways, just to be extra safe. Sure, why not? Don't be afraid to do that. Look for what kind of Sentinel trips they have. You know, there's a lot of, I mean, chamber trip you can't really smoke off because it's so buggy and it never works, and I swear to God, every time I try smoke went off. Anyways, if they have something like that, you can usually counter it or look to counter it. Don't be afraid to flank when they have something like that. You need to pressure flank, especially if the game's not working out. You need something. That's for damn sure. A lot of controllers play a little bit differently. There's more aggressive duelists. There's more aggressive controllers. There's more duelist controllers. Some controllers have more like lurk play style, like Viper, and then I'm basically referencing like Omen for very aggressive, and then Clove for just duelist. So each of them has their own sort of aspect you can lean into that makes their abilities shine. I'll talk about which one I recommend at the end, but it's important you lean into and understand this is what makes them shine. You don't want to be a Clove that never takes fights. Although I would say you don't want to be a Brimstone that only plays for lineup. You don't want to be that Brimstone. That Brimstone has been in the game since beta, and his lineups still have not done anything. Okay, except every 1 out of 100 times they get the lineup and it works. And then they clip it, and then they post it on TikTok, and then people were like, oh my God, I gotta go learn lineups. I'm so glad that the lineups meta has like left of Valorant. It was so prominent, and there was always like Viper playing lineups and Brim playing lineups, and it's just they completely so no one plays post plant lineups anymore. And they even like recently took out the ping for Sova's ult, so like good luck ulting the bomb, buddy, because you can't even ping where the bomb is and know the correct height, so you're just ulting the ground. Anyways, that's mostly that. If you throw out your smokes, you should still be playing aggressive. Once you have your smokes, you're basically out of the game. You should just be fighting or looking to position yourself with the remaining of your abilities. Don't be afraid to go aggressive as a controller. It's important you're like 3rd, 4th man when you guys execute sites. But if you already have your smokes out, you should just be up there with the duelist. There's really no reason not to be at that point. Next up, I want to talk about Sentinel. Sentinel's a fun one. A lot of different aspects to Sentinel. There's duelist Sentinels. I think there's duelist Sentinels. There's a duelist in every role except Initiator right now. I'm waiting for the duelist Initiator. But the big thing with Sentinels that I see is I want to say peeking past their util, but what it really is they're not playing to the reasoning of their utility. Their utility has a purpose or doesn't have a purpose. There's a disconnect between what their utility is doing and what they're doing. That's what it is. If you have a trip that watches mid, you don't need to be watching mid necessarily. If you have a KJ set up on site, you shouldn't be peeking into B main past all your util. If you have a trip for art and you're peeking A main with your TP, you should be anchoring that area for your team. If you have a cipher set up on site, you should be waiting somewhere on site where you can swing off your trip or off your cages or play inside them, whatever, so your utility gets value. If this doesn't happen, I don't expect your teammates to do it, and so I believe you should do it. It's also really important for Sentinels to adapt to the enemies. So there's a lot of different Sentinel setups. There's the site setups. There's like aggressive setups, like aggressive intel, or just like aggressive setups like KJ turret B main ascent, like just early cams in general, early trips even for like chamber. Sentinel is not just a site setup. There's also like intel setups like Cypher Haven, Trip Garage, Trip Mid, Cam C Long, pure intel, and this is all going to depend on the type of team you're facing, whether or not they have a lurk, whether or not they have a lot of stuff to counter your util. Like you never want to do a site setup when they have like a KO ult, for example, or a KO who knows where you play, or like the Sova starts shocking close every single time. You shouldn't keep putting your trips close. I know it sounds very simple, but I see it time and time again. And I'm also speaking from my own experience, of course. So important to read into how the X-Site even, where does Waylay send it on site? Where does Reyna flash out and peek from? You're mostly looking at the gap closers like Raze, Neon, Jet, Waylay, any of those, and just seeing like what their pathing is. Sometimes it's worth it to do those super like high up weird trips that only players will hit if they jump into or use an ability into. Sometimes you can counter certain util like Skydog if you do the trips at head height instead of the usual crouch and put it in between your third eye. I think so much as Sentinel is adaptation. I think most Sentinels have good setups. They just don't adapt their setups to the team they're facing. They realize too late, or they don't look to realize. They don't ask themselves the questions of what do they do, where do they play, where do they like to go. They don't read into the enemy as much, and so their setup instantly has less value. I also think people have this idea that Sentinel needs to be played passive as hell, like they can't die, they're supposed to lock down space with their team, and it sounds true, it is true, but there is a part of Sentinel that should look to play more aggressive when other stuff isn't working, or just when they feel like they have a play. I should have put this in the general tips. Like, if you feel like you have a play, take it. I don't care what role you are. I don't care what the man advantage is. I don't care what this is. If you genuinely feel like you have something, take it. See what happens. Because these aren't really rules as much as guidelines. Officer, what do you mean I was speeding 90 and a 65? If you think about it, 6 is just 9 but upside down, and I was upside down at the time. I thought it said 95. But sir, if you were upside down, it would say 59. Well, officer, I've taken a adequate amount of drugs and a decent amount of alcohol tonight, so I'm not sure what's my left from right. And that's my tip for Sentinel. Don't do drugs, kids. And also don't be afraid to go aggressive on Sentinel. That was the point of all that. Just because there's rules in place doesn't mean not to do it. That's gotta be the last one for Sentinel before I lose my mind. Let's talk about Initiator. Initiators are basically, okay, I'm gonna break down the word here. Initiate. So they're meant to help their duelists get on site. They're meant to help their entries get on site. They're meant to help their team take space. They're an assist. Their abilities, think about it, they go in really weird, strange spots, and then they usually get like, it's usually just like a scan or a flash or something that pops very quick and can pop in very strange places. That's Initiator. And so the entire purpose of that is you need to throw your stuff in strange, weird spots for it to get value. That's the first thing. My thing for fades and Sovas, when they're trying to like find something, forget the lineups. I'm Spitfire. They forget the lineups. Okay, the lineups aren't worth it majority of the time. Find something quick and easy to set up that you can chuck and be there as it's popping, or your teammates can be there as it's popping. Do it somewhere behind and above your opponents. So if they're playing on site and they're looking at A main, throw it behind and above their head. This goes the same on when you're defending and they're coming out site. Throw it like above the entrance to the site. Who the hell is gonna shoot that? They gotta literally twist their neck, crack it, turn into an owl, shoot the dart while they're getting scanned. It's just not possible. A second part to that is make sure you look for abilities for this is mainly defense. Look for abilities to time your abilities. So when they flash out into sight, maybe it's time when they pop smokes and flash out. Seems like it's definitely time when they pop flashes, smoke, jet dashes out. It's definitely time. So look for indicators and what your opponents are planning to do. Can be a huge thing. This honestly goes for most abilities, but especially Initiator. The second or the third part of that, which is also important, is now you have the perfect dart. Now you know exactly when to throw it. And now the most important thing is, are you actually doing something off of it? So this is for that dart when they come outside. It's also for Initiator util in general. If you're throwing the flash or a dog or an eye or a dart or a dog, any of this, you need to be able to follow up on it. Someone needs to be able to follow up on it. I always suggest you being there to follow up with it, or making it very clear to the other person that they're gonna follow up with this. This is the same as expect for help. Don't expect help, ask for help. Hey, Jet, I'm gonna dart back sight and drone close. Do you want to dash you? Or you notice they dash you and you're like, hey Jet, I'm just gonna dart deep you at the start of the round. I want you to go in with the dart. Does that sound good? And they're like, yup. And then boom, you have a plan and your teammate listens. Isn't life beautiful? Isn't that felt so demeaning. So now you have the dart, you have the util. You know when to throw it, and you know how you can follow up on it and how to convince your teammates to follow up on it. The last part of that is not, it's kind of like a side quest type thing. It's knowing what your util actually covers, what dangers you're covering with your util, what space is going to be exposed versus isn't when you throw a util. So if you throw like the one above the side entrance, for example, the sight's gonna be clear, but what if the jet's in her smoke when she dashed in? Could be a jet on site. So that's like your first danger, and then what's your second danger gonna be? Probably the people sitting in the smoke right outside site waiting to come out to help their jet. So which of these players do you want to fight in this situation? The jet who's alone on site, or the teammates who are waiting for the dart to help her? It's also really important on attack. A lot of attack for Initiator is clearing dangers for your teammate, whether it's close right, whether it's U-Haul, whether it's backside, whether it's showers. It's an assist to take space. It's also an assist to clear dangers, aka get intel. But I think the simplest way to think about it is knowing what dangers you covered versus didn't. This is really important for Initiator. It's going to be a little bit important for Duelist too. Initiator should usually clear a lot of the close dangers. And if there's anyone there, I guess not just the close dangers, it's most of the dangers in general, the Initiator should clear. And if someone is there, the Duelist fights that person. That's kind of the general principle with those two. But when you're taking the site, it really helps to determine, like, do I need another ability here? Really good for Initiators to keep track of the site players. Usually, for every map in Valorant, there's 2 players. You can assume there's 2 players there every time. So when you kill the long player, for example, you can assume there's a short player. If he's not short, he's probably backside. So always assume there's 2, and then use your utility until you find those 2 is a really good starting principle. It's really important. This honestly could have been a general principle, but it's really important to understand like what space you're controlling. It's less about the space. It's more about the dangers, where the closest possible place an enemy could be at. So if you killed the 2 side players, right? Who are the players remaining? It's the players rotating from CT or rotating through mid, or maybe going through flank. And so you consider these possibilities when you fight the CT players and you don't see, the Reyna, surprise, she's not swinging with her teammate. Who would have guessed this one? You can assume that she's flank. If you have a flank trip, they don't have to be flank. They could be mid or CT. It's really important to understand where the players are around the map. I give something to my students a lot called roll call, where you keep track of players beyond the round. This is important for Initiator because a lot of Initiator is intel. There's intel Initiators. They're probably the most common. You don't see a lot of the other types as much, to be honest, you see a lot of Fade and Sova, a little bit of Gecko, but I'm thinking like Breach, KO, we just don't see a lot of anymore. But intel Initiators, your job is especially important to surprise, first word of the name, get intel. And so when your team's, let's say you do the roll call, like we've seen, we've seen Jet, Clove, Cypher, the KO is dead, but we haven't seen the Reyna. Where is the Reyna? Maybe she's lurking mid for the 6th time in a row. So we dart mid, find her, kill her, perfect. We dart mid, don't see her. Maybe she actually isn't mid and she went up C this round. She somehow decided to change her mind. Something random players usually have difficulty doing. Must be an accident. Another example is, let's say like those same 4 are there. They went B at the start of the round and it's like 20 seconds later and we're still not sure if they're B. Dart, drone, dog, skyflash, anything just to get some intel so your team can have better rotates, you can have better rotates, so you guys can better stack, so the enemy has less of a jump on you. I know they did this whole change to Initiator recently where it's like 40-second cooldown. No, 60-second cooldown on abilities now, and it's really crazy. So it's really important to listen for that intel now more than ever. The reason for this change is to make you and your decisions around your abilities feel more decisive, more tactical. So listening for intel and really looking for that key scenario of we haven't seen them, heard them, they haven't done nothing for 20 seconds. They're either waiting outside B for some reason and gonna push at 40, or they're going back to A. The last thing I have for initiators is to 3-2-1 their abilities, especially with their duelist. The communication part between initiator and duelist, they are like yin and yang in some way. I don't know, possibly. It's just really important they're on the same page and they know what each other is doing. It's really good for the initiator to be the IGL, to be honest. A lot of their abilities help us take space. They know how to work the maps pretty well because of this. And they help us take space pretty effectively without risking our lives in the process. Shout out all our initiator mains out there. Now we're gonna have to talk about the dreaded, daring, disastrous duelist. Duelist is a really interesting one. A lot of my duelist players have mental issues, as we've talked about before. A lot of them have... I want to talk about this because it's really not talked about much. Like, duelists are expected to frag, and a lot of duelists have this belief that they need to frag, that they need to get kills, and if they don't get kills or if they don't top frag, they're not doing their job as a duelist. And so when I say my duelist players have mental issues, I mean, they have trouble with confidence. They have trouble like knowing if they're doing the right thing. Like, they have a very hard focus on mechanics. They have a very hard pressure on their performance. And some people like that. Some people like that duelist vibe. Maybe it's something comfortable for them. Some people just play duelist because they think it's going to help them climb out of their rank. Play random to practice their fights. But a lot of duelists have these mental issues. They have this insane pressure about the kills that they have to get, and then it creates this very strange expectation that doesn't always match reality, because can you always get a kill on your entry? Can you always top frag? And when you do not top frag, when you do not get a kill on the entry, how does it make you feel? So there's this huge mental aspect I think duelists face especially. I think a lot of other roles have frustrations, but I don't know. I've just been thinking about them in a different light, because they gotta lead the pack most of the times. A lot of pressure's on them to get the space, and if they don't, it looks very, very bad on them. Or to them it appears that way, I guess I should say. So yeah, I think the first thing I want to say to all the duelists who are listening, take it easy on yourself. Take it easy. The goal of a duelist is to take space and take fights when necessary. So a good example of this is when you go onto a site. If you dash into your smoke and then peek and die, and you're like, oh damn it, I didn't get the kill. Gosh darn. But your teammates peek out and get the trade after, W. If you smoke and dash outside and none of your teammates come outside, you also don't want to be like, why the hell did none of my teammates come outside? Well, what are they doing? I did my perfect entry. There was not a single thing wrong with it, and they didn't come out. Instead, you maybe want to think, okay, were the smokes down? Was my initiator knowing that I was going to go out? Remember the initiator duelist combo we talked about? Really important. Or is there something stopping them from coming out? Did they get hit with a molly, a slow, a pole, not necessarily a smoke, a nade, anything. Maybe that's a sign we need to bait out some utility, maybe go towards mid, nade to take our duelist entry just a little bit slower, or we need to like contact up where they don't have the information that we're going to the site until we're in the site. If you know what I'm saying. Yes sir. Would you believe me if I told you it was 5 a.m. when I started recording this? One of the general tips we talked about was preparation, and duelist is the most important one. Oh wait, actually the other part of that was taking fights when necessary. So we talked about play passive when you're at an advantage, play aggressive when you're at a disadvantage. It is Duelist's job or responsibility. It is a heavy suggestion to Duelists when they're at a disadvantage that they need to go more aggressive to take space, rather to take a fight and equalize the round. This also goes the same when we're low on intel and let's say like our initiator's dead. Duelists sometimes just take a fight to get the intel. This can be dangerous and a little disastrous, but sometimes that play is necessary to get the intel. You see this in pro play a lot. Actually probably one of the best places to see it used in a manner. That's really, really effective. A lot of duelists have to just take fights in pro play. They want to save their abilities. They want to get intel. Who's the best fitted to do that without risking any of that? The duelist. Who do we care the least about when they die? The duelist. Hey, fuck him. Am I right? Everyone else? Fuck him. My bad. Duelists, your most important thing is having your entries down on attack. The dangers is also really important, kind of like Initiator. I think those are two roles are like most, like I think good duelists make good initiators and vice versa, because knowing those dangers when you take a site, knowing what spaces you haven't cleared or what spaces your initiator didn't clear, it is super helpful for clearing the site. The same like 2-man rule when you hit a site, finding the 2. Also the same thing with Duelist. You're clearing the space, clearing the dangers, securing the site for your team, and then positioning and not peeking CT because you're a dirty Reyna main. Please don't peek CT. Big issue I see with a lot of duelists, and there's a time and a place. Don't get me wrong. A lot of you don't know the time and the place. You clear site, do an amazing job entry, maybe get a first blood, and then as soon as you get site control, you're just like, yeah, let me peek CT. Just like pure 50-50, let me peek CT. There's a time and a place. I would think about the advantage point we talked about at the start of the video. You need an advantage, you can't just peek. If you think you have a good timing, honestly, you might. But once players get smart enough, they're just gonna know duelist peek CT. There's a point where everyone just knows the duelist peek CT, and so when they're rotating, I'm just thinking about ascent. B site. Every duelist peek CT. When you rotate from A to B, all you do is look towards CT. That's all you do. You just look at the edge of the smoke, you just wait, and then you kill them. So that's the one character flaw that duelists have, is the overheat. They keep going for kills when the kills aren't necessary. When we're at an advantage, we play passive. The other thing is it's really important to have like a pathing or entry that you understand what you're prioritizing, and mainly what danger you're prioritizing, and then what pathing you're going to take to clear those dangers. How are you going to mitigate the risk that's there? Do you have an initiator ability to assist with it? Like, I'm telling you guys, this is not rocket science sometimes. It's just not it's not rocket science. When you want a specific play and you ask your Sova, like Ascent, if you want to dash over a boathouse into sight, and you do it with like 0 utility, it's very, very likely that you die. But if you do it with like a Sova dart, or like your Reyna flashing through B main into lane, or you wait for like the stairs player to be spotted and taking fights, you wait for your teammates to peek lanes, so you know there's no lane danger and they can only be stairs default their backside, you're giving yourself more of an advantage in that scenario. You're making your opponent less prepared in that scenario until you've done it for the 6th time in a row. But that's neither here nor there. And then once you land there, where you're remaining, basically your pathing, if you do like a gap close, if you're like a gap close duelist, gap close is basically just they go across the screen very fast. So like Oben's TP is a gap close technically, but like Jet's dash, Neon's wall and like her run with the wall is technically a gap close. Reyna isn't a gap closer. Raze is a gap closer. She can double satchel across the map really fast. Waylay's a gap closer. Go across the screen very fast equals gap closing. What this basically means is it draws a threat into the center of the site. It draws people's crosshairs from the entry point to the duelist. That's right. The duelist is just the sacrificial lamb for you guys to get the site. It's also why it's really important to know your pathing as soon as you get out of your safety net, or what danger you're going to prioritize. For example, like Waylay, I'm thinking Waylay Sunset, like they go A main and they like double dash left side with like a stun and jump on that player and clear that. If they notice someone plays there, they maybe double dash right side with like a Sova dart elbow and jump on them there. So you're constantly looking for like the danger to jump on, and after you jump on them, I mean Waylay would probably TP back, but if you're like Jet and you dash outside into your smoke, where are you looking after? Where's your next danger you're gonna look at? And then what about the one after that? So I'm thinking Ascent, and my brain is so Ascent minded. Like you dash switch, you clear right and left. Now you look towards stairs. Once stairs is clear, you look towards backside, default, even there's like a small timing on lane they could have come out. And so you keep all this in mind as you continue to push this site. You clear default, then you clear backside. You maybe see if your teammates have pushed out B main so that lane timing is clear, or maybe you killed 2 players in this time. There's very likely not a third one, you would hope. And now you have site control. Now you can prioritize the rotates, which is CT and tree, or a door, or switch, or what is that place called? Market, I think market. And clear CT and market, and then you can position yourself for what they have. What abilities do they have remaining? This is another general tip, but what abilities do they have remaining at that point? Do they still have like a Sova dart, for example? Do they still have flashes, for example? Do they still have smokes, for example? And where do you typically see that used? This is where like experience will come into play more, but make your best guess. I mentioned duelists have a lot of prioritization on mechanics. I want to stress the emphasis of preparation in fights. It is really important to have mechanical confidence, gunfight confidence, knowing what fights to take and how to take them, so you are at an advantage. Mechanics play a part in that, and you can't be a good duelist without knowing how to take a good fight. And if you're not, and there's a lot of there's a lot of things that can come up, like we talked about the mental issues that duelists always seem to have. It's like they all came out of a psych ward or something. I feel so bad. I'm like completely dogging on I'm making the duelist actually like the word. But these things can also be affected by the like confidence issues. I guess it would be better to say low confidence. I'm trying to be nice to the duelist. Low confidence, or like the feeling of pressure from teammates or from yourself, the feeling of needing to perform. And so we unknowingly but intentionally, I guess those are contradictory, but we compensate for this by seeking out fights, any fights that we sense. We say, oh, I'm bottom fragging, I need to just fight, or I'm bottom you see it both ways, honestly. I'm bottom fragging, so I need to fight, and I'm bottom fragging, so I can't fight, I can't peek anything, I'm just gonna hide sight. And then there's like the balance where it's like I'm bottom fragging, I'm just gonna keep trying and doing my best and maybe revisit the fundamentals. Let me set up a play here. What kind of ults do they have? What kind of plays have I tried in the past that worked? Maybe I can replicate those, so on and so forth. That's gonna be it for duelists. Let's talk about best agents to climb with. We'll just go in the same order. My idea for best agents to climb with is like best agents to teach you how to play the game, how to make you better, and what will lead to like long-term success. I think there's a lot of I think there's some band-aid solutions, cough Reyna, that may push you to climb the ranks and then lead you in a place where you're completely bottlenecked. Everyone is better than you and you don't know why, and you don't know what mistakes you're making, and that was your second mistake. Your first mistake was choosing Reyna. Anyways, the first one is controller. I think the best agent for this is Omen. I think Omen's in a really good spot right now. He's got a very nice flash. He's got gap close TPs. He's got smokes to aid his TPs. He's got a flash to aid his TP. His ult is also very good for fast rotates. It's very good for like throwing that unpreparedness or just like question marks into the fray. He's like Yoru but a controller, and I think that aspect really strong, especially if utilized right. I think just like being able to TP up on top of somewhere really fast, like I'm thinking Corrode, you guys like TP on the box and then TP up to heaven, or if you just like get the site, you can TP up to heaven. There's also like early TPs you can do to get off angles, and then you can TP back, like for example B main or A main on the Corrode. Like either of those, if you're in defense, you could just TP in corner and have like a angle and then get a kill and then TP back. And I know someone is like, but Slayer, they're gonna hear the TP. Wait, let me do the voice. But Slayer, they're gonna do the TP. And I'm gonna direct that person back to that perfect Valorant we talked about at the start of the game. There is no play there that exists without them hearing the TP. And you're still creating it. I just looked at the time and it's been an hour and 16 minutes. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's keep going. Let's not linger. Omen for controller. Next up, Sentinel. This one's a little tricky. Vice had a place. She was really good. Cypher has a place. He got nerfed a little. Chamber still has a place. This one I'm not as sure. If you asked me like like before the Cypher nerf, I would have said Cypher. It's between Cypher and Chamber in my head. And I just want to say Cypher. I think Cypher's got a lot of versatility to his util. I think his trips, you can find a lot of really weird spots. I think it creates like a, what's the word here? Kind of like Neon, like the Neon Yoru. But there's like a big skill ceiling almost for these agents. Like it's not like Sage where you just like throw down your wall as much. There's like a few different spots with the wall you can use. There's a lot of stuff you can learn of like his cam spots and his trip spots. I think they're really interesting. I think it will teach you a lot about like adapting. I think Chamber is good for like anchoring. I'm gonna go with Cypher on this one. It's not a confident Cypher. Like I can see Deadlock working really well. I can see Vise working really well. Sage and Killjoy, honestly, I think they're ass. No offense. I don't think that they're just in a good place in the meta right now, and I don't think they're gonna be very good for you to improve with or climb with in general. I think Chamber, Cypher are my 2 for this. I'm going with 2 because I can't choose one. Sorry, not sorry. And this was a grocery store, you'd enjoy the 2 for 1. Next up is Initiator. This one's also a little tricky. I'm not gonna. I thought this was gonna be way easier. It's because all these recent changes they did really threw. I think Fade. I want to say Fade. And my second, I mean, Sova's really good. Sova's really good. This one's, so I'm gonna do 3 for this one, but because I just think it depends on the map. I really like Corrode. Fade works really well, and you can make Sova work. It's just if I don't know what it is, but for some reason in higher elo there's like a set meta and everyone plays the meta and no one really switches it up. It's very rare, like on Sunset for example, to not see a Sova darting elbow every single round. You very rarely don't see Sova on that map. Same for Corrode, you always see Fade. You very rarely see another Initiator. So this one's really difficult. I would say Fade. Fade's my number 1, but I'm gonna suggest that Breach is also really strong. He's really good team play. He's also very good solo for solo plays. I think Fade's a little stronger than Sova because of her dogs, but I think Sova's a little stronger for clearing out some utility with his shocks. But I think if I had to choose one out of all these, I would choose Fade. Not just because she's got 2 different colored eyes and a beautiful white stroke in her hair. It's because of her utility. I swear. Next up is Duelist. This is gonna be an interesting one. Again, if you asked me before the recent change, I would say Yoru. Right now I just want to say Waylay. I can't think of another Duelist that's more destructive to the meta right now, and like the recent changes to her did her really well. There's a lot of stuff you can do with her. Jet was good up to a point. Neon's more of like a meta agent or like a niche agent. Like you learn all the movement and stuns and like you're basically just a Neon one trick. Yoru got nerfed pretty bad. I would have said Yoru, right? But his ult changes and his TP, I think you can still do a decent amount of stuff with him. I think he's still pretty fun to play, but I don't think he's as strong as he once was. And I don't see him doing as much as Yoru's able, or as Waylay's able to do. I'd probably go Waylay first, and then I trickle down to Raze. No, I trickled down to Phoenix. No, I trickled down to Yoru, Raze, Phoenix just because of his ult, and then the rest of them. Alrighty, well that does it. We officially made it through the entire video. If you watched this far, leave a comment that says I hate Reina mains. I hope you guys enjoyed this yap sesh. Hope to do more in the future, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.